So go to Genesis 29 and verse 21. So I'm speaking tonight, as Brother Buster starts the recording, I'm speaking tonight about passing along the right traits. Passing along the right traits. And we're going to look at an example here tonight in the scriptures about when the right traits were not passed along. So we're going to land on Genesis 29, verse 21 in a minute. I do want to start off with an opening passage. It says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." That's in Galatians 6:7. So let me read that again. So be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, it's talking about sowing seeds, that's the type of seeds that will grow into a plant, or it will grow up. So we're going to look tonight at Rebekah and Jacob, as well as Isaac and Esau. So these are all people that we're going to look at here concerning a story found in Genesis 27. Genesis 27 is a very long chapter, and you can, hopefully you will read it. It's a story type chapter, as you well know. And we find that Jacob, whose name, who does he become later? His name's changed. What does his name become? God changed his name, called him who? Israel. Right?
Was it Israel?
Yep. So his name, Jacob, later his name will be changed to Israel. And so he has the children of Israel. That's all intertwined in what we're looking at tonight. So who was Rebekah? Rebekah was Isaac. Isaac was the son of Abraham. Remember, Abraham was going to offer up Isaac as a sacrifice, and the angel stopped him.
She deceived.
Yes, Rebekah has a part in deceiving her husband. She loved Jacob more than life. I mean, that was her favorite son. Esau was kind of an outdoorsy person. He was a hunter. He was gifted in providing game and looking after the family, and he more of a nomadic type person. But Jacob, what did Jacob do? Jacob stayed around the house most of the time. He was the type person that was happy at home. So they were the exact opposites. Esau, now we're looking at these two, they were twins, right?
He was the eldest.
Yeah, but Esau was born first, making him the eldest. Now the eldest son is the one who would receive more of a birthright, more control over the family. He would become the head of the home or head of the family. And so we find out that that's the way it's looking here. Isaac feels like that he doesn't know how much longer he's going to live. So he speaks to Esau and he says, I want you to go out, kill some game, kill a deer, go ahead and cook it the way you do and bring it, because I love eating that deer meat. You bring it to me and I will bless you. In other words, the blessing that the father gives to the firstborn son is concerning prophecy. In other words, he says, you're going to be the greatest son, you're going to be a leader, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. So whatever the father usually tells the son, most of the time, it will come true, and then that person assumes the role of the head of the family. Okay. So he told Esau to go do that. He said, bring me some meat. I'm going to bless you. So what happened? Rebekah heard it. And Rebekah said to Jacob, we're not going to let that happen. I want you to become head of the family. I want you to be in control. You're my favorite. And so I want you to go and get some deer meat, and you bring it to me, and I'll cook it, and I will give it to you, or you will give it to Isaac. And he's going to think that you are Esau. And so what did he say? Well, no, we're two different people. He's hairy. You know, he smells like the woods.
It's
You know.
a different odor.
Yeah, different odor. He said he smells like the woods, and Dad is going to know exactly who he is, and so it's not going to work out, and then he's going to curse me. Instead of blessing me, he's going to curse me, and I'll be cursed the rest of my life, and nothing's going to go right because of it. And I'm summarizing all this. And Rebekah said to him, don't worry about that, I've got it. He can curse me, I'm not worried about it, his curse. You know, she was up in age 2, and so she figured if she were to have a curse put upon her, and we're not talking about curse words, we're talking about prophecy. She said, I can handle that. I want you to be the head of the family. Well, you know what happened? She took some goat skin. Now, I don't know if she had to kill the little baby goat, or if they had some just around. Where she,
They had water in them.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Like a thermos or something, you know.
that's right. So they took the hair, and put it on Jacob. And she cooked the food, and he went in. Of course, his voice wasn't the same. And Isaac said, well, who are you? He couldn't see. He said, who are you? And he said, I'm Esau. And I brought you what you wanted. I brought you the food. And I want you to bless me. Well, we find that Isaac was, Jacob, he wanted to be blessed, but Isaac just didn't feel right about it. But anyway, it all worked out where he was willing to bless Jacob instead of Esau. So in order for all this to happen, there had to be a lot of lies told. This family seems to have a problem deceiving one another. Matter of fact, we find that Jacob's name actually meant supplanter, no, but trickster. So he grew up being a trickster into the family, always deceiving people, maybe just a liar in general. But God straightened that out later on. So Isaac was deceived by the voice and by the clothing and the goat skins. Now, the lesson about this tonight is that Rebekah was a deceiver. Jacob was a deceiver. We find out that as a result, Jacob is going to be deceived himself. Now, Rebekah also had a brother whose name was Laban, who lived in a different area. I think it's Haran. He lived in a different area. And so what happened was Esau swore that he was going to kill Jacob. He said, as soon as Dad dies, I'm going to kill Jacob. And so as a result, Rebekah found that out, and she sent her son Jacob off to go live with Laban. And so he goes off to Haran, live with him, and he gets there and he meets someone. Can you tell me the name of Jacob's wife that he wants to marry? Who? The one he is supposed to marry. Rachel? Was it Rachel? That's right. Yeah, Laban was the guy. and I can't have here, that's the reason I did my ear like that. Laban was the father of Rachel. So he met her and he told Laban, I want to marry Rachel. And he said, well, to do that, how many years do you have to work? 7 years. Actually ended up working 14. So she must have been a real beauty, very sweet person. So the family was willing to use deception in order to gain some blessings, in order to gain, they thought, God's blessings. But eventually they suffered because of the deception that they were trying to do. So now think about this now. Here you have the deceivers. You have Rebekah and you have Jacob, and they deceived Isaac, the father. All right. So Jacob was actually being trained by his mother. I mean, you can look at it any way you want to. She was training him on how to be deceitful. Because instead of standing up for what is right and wrong, she decided in order to have her favorite son become the head of the family, she's going to cause this trickery. So he goes off and he lives with Laban, Rebekah's brother. Now, think about this now. Rebekah was deceitful. Laban was deceitful. So what happened with Laban? So let's look at that passage, Genesis 29 and verse 21. And Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled. In other words, I worked 7 years, that I may go in unto her. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place, and they made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah, not Rachel, he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. Now, the reason he did that was because ever since Jacob arrived there, the family was blessed. God was blessing Jacob, even though the deceit took place. We find that he still blessed Jacob. And so the livestock multiplied, on and on and on. The blessings multiplied. And Laban didn't want him going anywhere. So he made him work 7 years for Rachel, and then he gave Leah to Jacob. So it says here in verse 23, and he brought her to him, and he went into her. And verse 24, and Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah, his maid, for a handmaid. And it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. In other words, when they woke up, it was Leah who was there. And he said unto Laban, what is this thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve thee with thee for Rachel? Wherefore hast thou beguiled me? Now who's being beguiled? Jacob, who tricked family, is now being tricked himself. So it's like they're passing down this trait. That's the wrong kind of trait to have. We need to pass along faithfulness and being obedient unto God. The opposite here took place. So he worked for 7 years for Rachel. On the wedding night, it was dark. I mean, I don't know a way to put it. It was dark. They were probably in a tent sometime, nomadic people. And Laban, the deceitful father, substituted his daughter here for Jacob to marry. So the deceiver became the deceived. So the irony is that Jacob, you remember, Jacob once disguised himself as Esau, and now Leah is disguised as Rachel. So the same thing happened to him. So what did we read? We read what we sow. Isn't that what we read a few minutes ago? So what Jacob did to his father, Laban did to him. So the lesson is sin often returns wearing a different face. The man who fooled a blind father was fooled in the darkness himself. So then we find it even goes further. So let's see here. I'll let you turn over there if you want to. Genesis 37 and verse 31. So we see the deception there in those circumstances. So now we come into some more deception. We reap what we sow. You find Joseph's brothers deceived Jacob. Joseph's brothers deceived Jacob. Genesis 37, verse 31. And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid of the goats and dipped the coat in blood, and they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, "This have we found." So you remember what happened? Joseph's brothers sold him. They threw him in a pit, then he sold him to some nomadic people, and he is gone. So instead of killing him, one of the brothers said, okay, instead of killing him, let's sell him. You know, don't kill your brother. Don't kill our brother. And we'll tell Dad that an animal has attacked him. Now you remember whenever they used the kid's skin, the goat skin, in order to make him feel like Esau, the hairiness of Esau's arms, they had to kill that animal. And so the blood, there was blood shed. And now we find blood being shed again of an animal. So it says, "This we have found." Now, you know, here's his coat, and it's bloody. We don't really know whether it's thy son's coat or not. Sure, they knew it was his coat, the coat of many colors. And then it says he knew it. So this is Jacob recognized the coat and said, "It is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him." Well, they didn't say anything any different. They could have said, you know, "No, we're really tricking you." They didn't own up to anything. They were being deceitful, a trait that has been passed down. We need to be careful what we pass down. We need to pass down traits of faithfulness, of knowing God, and doing the right thing. And so it says, Joseph is without a doubt rent or torn to pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. Can you imagine the sons that were halfway decent people, how they felt about this about now? But they could not back up. They had to carry on with the ruse. They had to carry on with the deceit. Verse 35, "And all his sons and daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, For I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him." So now the brothers have sold Joseph. They have dipped Joseph's coat in blood. They convinced Jacob that a wild beast had killed his son. So that's the parallel we have in this situation. So the same sin appears and reappears in every generation. Uncorrected sins, sins that have not been confessed and dealt with, often become inherited patterns in life. Now, think about that. You think about King David. He ended up with the same problem. We find, who did King David allow to be killed? Bathsheba. Bathsheba's husband. So what happened to King David's son that Bathsheba had? He died as a child. So there it again, uncorrected sins become inherited patterns of life. And then think about this, Absalom, who ended up being king, or he tried to take the throne, he ended up being killed. So again, coming home to him. So the family trait should not be passed along. This is a terrible family trait. We need to watch what we say. We need to care about our witness. And deceit, the Bible tells us, destroys trust, relationships. It destroys families and fellowship. If anyone in your family has ever told an untruth, can you trust them anymore? You know, it's kind of hard to trust them. So the Bible repeatedly condemns sin. So let me read you a couple passages. Proverbs 12:22, lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. Colossians 3:9, lie not one to another. Ephesians 4:25, put away lying, speak every man truth. So the trait that we should pass along is truthfulness. And so Abraham's family passed along this deception, and the believers are called to pass it along, you know. So it started out there with Rebekah and Laban. I mean, just on and on and on, just kept growing.
Once you tell one, you gotta cover
Yeah.
cover up the one.
That's right. It's easy to lose
Yeah,
touch with what was the truth in the beginning.
reality.
Yeah. You can get your stories twisted up real easy, and next thing you know, everything crumbles away. Plus, think about the trust factor, you know, will they ever trust you again? So, what we find the Apostle John saying in 3 John 4, chapter 4, it says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. So we need to walk in the truth. So, conclusion, I guess you could sum it up. You could say, well, Jacob, again, deceived Isaac. Laban deceived Jacob. Joseph's brothers deceived Jacob. So it's really come home to Jacob. And family traits are powerful. So let us pass along truth and faith and love and compassion and wholeheartedness, devotion to the Lord Jesus Christ. I thought that was interesting. I just